Yes, Sonic Colors. So I reacted to Sonic Colors upon buying it on the Xbox in the form of Sonic Colors Ultimate, the remaster that has caused controversy all over YouTube and all over the internet due to some notorious glitches. So I gave some of my feedback, and now I am ready to talk about the game in full and my total experience upon completing it, as well as the Wii version of this game in this overall Sonic Colors retrospectives, which encompasses both versions of the game, which are very similar. There's not a lot of differences, as we're about to get into. So guys, here we go. Without further ado, I give you my Sonic Colors retrospective.
The sky would start so bright, the colors feel so right. I've never felt like this, I'll keep on running. The sky would start so bright, the colors feel so right. Just take my hand, we're gonna reach for the stars tonight.
You know, every time I listen to Reach for the Stars, it just fills me with chills and a sense of joy. There's something about this song that sets it apart from Open Your Heart and Live and Learn, the adventure games theme songs, because it just has this happy feeling to it, this energetic feeling. While those songs might have been cool and kind of edgy, this song kind of just goes for the emotional, heartfelt feeling, and it works oh so well, and it always feels like a great way to start off the game. So every playthrough, I'd say listen to the whole intro before you begin, because your ears definitely deserve it and your heart does as well, because it's definitely an emotion-filled experience listening to this song every time. There's just something so joyous about this game. It fills me with a sense of joy. It's just, Sonic Colors is truly colorful. I mean, it lives up to its name in every sense of the word. And what exactly do I mean by that? You've got a pretty colorful story, something that goes in a whole different direction, and you could say it's still the same predictable Eggman scenario. But what's going on here? So we've got Eggman creating his interstellar amusement park. And this place, unlike Eggman Land, is meant to have amusement park rides, and it's supposed to be a way of him apologizing for his past transgressions, as he puts it. But really, it's just a front. In reality, he has taken the planet Wisp hostage, as well as its residents, the Wisps, and he plans to use their energy to create a mind control laser. And it's really interesting how they decided to start off this game by just dropping you into it. You're in Tropical Resort Act 1 and you're off to the races, almost literally. And you might kind of scratch your head at first and say, well, you know, where's that big opening cutscene? You know, the last major Sonic game that they had, we had Sonic Unleashed with probably one of the most breathtaking opening cutscenes we've ever seen, and it is pretty shocking that they forewent that and just went with kind of the Sonic 1 approach, just drop you into the game and you're playing the level. Now, of course, you will get this story once you complete Act 2, and that's a really interesting way of doing things. It's unique, and I can't really give it too much flack. I mean, I kind of like things to be a bit more evened out and kind of know what's going on at first. But, you know, I guess if you read the back of the box, you kind of know what's going on. So I guess they didn't really want to have a normal format, and that's kind of okay with me. So before we get into the whips and the levels that you'll be traversing through, let's talk a little bit about this story and how it unravels. And it's not like there's this big, huge, mind-blowing story. It's not Sonic 06 levels of storytelling, and it's not even Sonic Unleashed levels. There's nothing, there's no mystical powers, and that's kind of what Sonic Team was going for this time around. They were kind of getting flack for Sonic 06, and I could see why on that accord. But when it came to Sonic Unleashed, I thought that there was a lot of undue flack, and I really enjoyed the story and the gameplay, and I can't wait to do a retrospective on that game. But we're not talking about that game right now, we're talking about Sonic Colors, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. Even though that game came first, but you get my point. So, there's a lot of comedy in this game. It kind of was a return to form. Even though there was quite a bit of comedy in Sonic Unleashed, there was still those serious undertones of the ancient power and Dark Gaia. But I didn't really think that game was too serious, as a lot of people said, but this game is definitely more comedic. It definitely has a bit more of, I guess you could say, an Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog vibe. So much so that we kind of get Scratch and Grounder in the form of Cubot and Orbot, which is interesting. And actually, Orbot is not really an original design. Yeah, we saw this guy before, and he was in Sonic Unleashed, but his name was SA55. But this is not the same robot. I guess you can say he was kind of a prototype for Orbot, and Orbot definitely has more personality. But Cubot, this is the guy with the over-the-top personality. This is kind of more your Scratch and Grounder kind of badnik. And he has the wrong voice chip in for pretty much the whole game. In some scenes, he's talking like a cowboy. In others, he's talking like a pirate. And then there's even one part where he's talking like Robert De Niro. And that's the thing about this game. A lot of people didn't like that there's some cheesy jokes in here. Sonic is also more comedic. Yeah, it is true. We didn't really see a comedic side when you kind of think about it in Sonic 06. Even in the adventure game, Sonic might have some one-liners, but he's definitely cracking more jokes this time around. And being a fan of 90s Sonic cartoons with Jaleel White, I have to say I feel right at home with this Sonic. And I know a lot of people have done their own retrospectives on this game, and they've bashed it to high heaven. Really funny because it seemed like a lot of people were fine with the comedy years ago, but it's so hilarious to me that a lot of times when people do these retrospectives, all of a sudden they get an epiphany that this humor and story is not as good as they remembered. I don't know what it is, but I think that they're taking a really hypocritical stance on this game story, because wasn't it the same fans that said Sonic 06 was too dark and evil and that we needed to get away from that? I'll tell you something, it's almost like Star Wars fans. No one hates Sonic games more than Sonic fans. And this is like with a lot of franchises. The fans hold the games to a ridiculously high standard. And even though this game was considered to be really good upon its release, many people have looked back on it and have really trashed this game, even before Sonic Colors Ultimate was a thing and before the glitches on the Switch. So I don't know why people have to be that harsh on it, because I think it's a really fun story. I like the amusement park vibe. I like how Robotnik is putting up a front, and obviously Sonic and Tails don't believe it. Sonic and Tails will also save Yacker, one of the Wisps, and this kind of becomes Sonic and Tails' buddy, and Tails uses a translator to try to figure out what Yacker is saying. And a lot of times he'll get some mistranslations, which leads to some comedic moments. And, I just all around find it to be quite charming, or a lot of the lines of dialogue cheesy, but that's the intended point. So yeah, of course they are, and I find them to be lovable. And it gives me that lighthearted feel of some of the early Sonic Archie comics, and as I mentioned, Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. So this version of Sonic is okay with me. Do I like the more serious Sonic? Yes, but I also like the comedic side. It's okay to have different versions of Sonic and have two sides to a coin. I kind of like this idea of how we could have some funny games and we could have some more serious ones as well, and then maybe mix the two together at the same time. Sonic has always been a versatile character, and Sonic Colors doesn't really seem that remote to me in concept. In the original Sonic Colors, we had 9 wisps in all, but this time we get 8. So we've got the White Wisp, which is your boost, which returns from Sonic Unleashed, and the boosting gameplay is just as fun as ever, though it feels quite different than it does in Unleashed, and it doesn't really get used as much. There's definitely more platforming in these levels, which we'll be talking about in a moment. We've got the Drill Wisp, which transforms you into a drill, and you can dig underground, and it also makes you move faster underwater. We have the Laser Wisp, which lets you shoot in through the air, and you could also use it to bounce off of these diamond objects and stages, letting you progress and access higher areas. We have the Hover Wisp, which lets you float and do a version of the Light Speed Dash on lines of rings. We have the Cube Wisp, which lets you turn these strange blue rings into cubes and vice versa. We have Frenzy, which lets you turn into a massive sharp-toothed creature and lets you break through all sorts of objects. The Spikes Wisp, which allows you to use the Spin Dash for the first time in many Sonic games, and it returns finally in this form. And this is a nice way of bringing in a classic Sonic move that was MIA for several games prior, and here it is somewhat making a return. You can also attach yourselves to ceilings and walls, which is also a lot of fun. This is definitely one of my favorites. We have the Rocket Wisp, which lets you rocket off into the air, letting you reach higher areas and then go skydiving down afterwards. And new to Sonic Colors Ultimate, the Ghost Wisp, which allows you to move from area to area using these ghostly orbs. So there is a lot of options, and the Wisp gameplay, though gimmicky, lends itself greatly to the gameplay and allows for some really interesting scenarios, and sometimes they're optional, but they are definitely fun to use. And if you're looking to grab all the goodies, you're going to definitely want to utilize these. Now, spread throughout these stages are something called red rings, and you're definitely going to want to get a hold of these bad boys if you want to turn into Super Sonic, and they're definitely a challenge to collect them all. 180 in all is one hell of a tall order, and quite the task to complete. I really don't think it's worth it all that much, but if you're really that obsessed with 100%ing this game, I say go for it, but I can enjoy it just the same even without Super Sonic. And plus, you have to beat all the Game Land levels as well to earn the Chaos Emeralds in order to transform even after collecting all those rings. And to me, that is really just a bit too much. I would have really preferred to just have the Game Land stages and forget about the red rings, but I guess they felt that that was just too easy. But it's a little bit too lengthy to get a prize that, well, you know, Super Sonic is great and all, but I don't really think it's that awesome and that cool that you really need to go through all this busy work in order to get it. Also new to Sonic Colors Ultimate is another incentive to collect the red rings, and thankfully you don't have to get as many to get Super Sonic to get this, but you got Rival Rush mode. But this is really a half-baked mode. It is kind of cool in theory that you get to face off against Metal Sonic in a race a la Sonic CD, but what do I mean by half-baked? Well, Metal Sonic is just phasing through objects. This is kind of like a time trial mode of sorts, where you're going to want to get through the level as quickly as possible in order to beat Metal Sonic, but you don't really get anything out of it, and as you can tell, it's just kind of cheap. I don't think it really took them that long to develop. Metal Sonic is just floating up shafts and phasing through objects as if he were the Ghost Wisp. I mean, to me, this is very unfulfilling. I think it would have been better if they could have just had Metal Sonic as a secret boss or something. I mean, that would have been kind of cool. I would have like to see them implement him in another way than this. I mean, a race is not a bad idea, but graphically, it's just kind of shitty. You've also probably noticed an item that you hadn't seen before if you played the original Sonic Colors, and that's the park tokens. You could use these golden tokens to purchase different looks, different aesthetics for Sonic, and they're pretty underwhelming. I did not care about any of this. I didn't even purchase anything, to be quite honest, during my playthrough. You can change the color of Sonic's gloves, his boost aura, and even his world famous shoes, but I just thought that it would have been cool to have some different bonus abilities, or maybe do a Sonic movie skin, which would have been awesome. So I didn't really care too much about these park tokens, and after all, they are optional, so I can't really complain all too much about them. Another Ultimate exclusive is the fact that you can have Tails assist you when you die by falling, so this eliminates the need to go back to the last checkpoint or to the beginning of the level. Also, lives are gone for the first time in the series history. This has been something that was in demand for a while, the elimination of lives. So now you'll just continue to keep going back to the same checkpoint or to the start of the level, and you know, the time will just continue on and on, which will affect your rank. But a game over is actually impossible in this game, which I think might annoy a few people. You know, I think that there kind of should be lives. It feels like there's more of a penalty for dying, but it definitely cuts through a lot of the needless frustrations that sometimes these games bring upon certain players. And we need to talk about the graphics here. So far, I've only used the footage from my Xbox One from Sonic Colors Ultimate, because it does look better, and showing you guys here in this retrospective, I feel like this is the best way to present it to you. But the game doesn't really seem all that remastered in the graphics department. It kind of doesn't. It really kind of looks just a little bit cleaner, a little bit crisper, but it doesn't seem as, you know, as on steroids as you'd want it to be like other games in the past. For example, when they remade Resident Evil, it looked like it was remastered, remade, and you noticed a clear difference. I mean, it was night and day. Here, it's kind of like afternoon to early evening, I guess you could say, because it's just not that big of a difference. Now, the footage that you are seeing from the Wii is being produced through the Wii to HDMI converter that you could buy on Amazon, and I've seen this game look better from other YouTubers, and that's because they're using Dolphin, which is an emulator, but I believe that this is probably the best that you can do on consoles without actually modding the console itself. But it is disappointing that they couldn't do better with this latest release of Sonic Colors Ultimate. But needless to say, I won't be going back to the Wii version anytime soon, because this version of Ultimate just looks better. And I guess I'm fine with that. I just was expecting more. So let's talk a little bit about these sections, these levels of Eggman's Interstellar Amusement Park. And they're all colorful, they all are full of personality, and I gotta say, I really like all the creativity that went into all these and the way the Wisp powers are incorporated. Plus, there is definitely more of the 2D gameplay that was seen in Unleashed. There's definitely a greater emphasis of it here in Colors, and you will see that you'll be spending quite a bit of time in the 2D camera angle, and you'll definitely have plenty of time in the 3D perspective as well, looking at Sonic from behind, but it's definitely more 2D, way more 2D than it was in Unleashed. And I love how throughout these various stages, Eggman has announcements on the PA which are just hilarious to listen to, and there's always something unique for each section that you go through, and it's very creative. It's a lot of fun, and Mike Pollock, I gotta say that this is the voice of Eggman, and I'm so happy that they never changed his voice. So we start off with Tropical Resort, and this is the first area that you are plopped into at the beginning of the game, as I mentioned before, and this is a very tropical looking area, as you might expect from the name. It's also the admissions area. You can see the attractions in the background, and it's very basic, really. You'll be smashing through some badniks with your boost. You'll be grinding on twisting rails, but there's really not a lot to go on about here. I mean, it's definitely a lot less detailed and simplistic than the other levels that will follow. But one of my favorite things about Tropical Resort is after you gain the Drill Wisp, you can come back here later on and you can explore an entirely new lower route. And this is kind of cool. It really is like a mystery uncovered. I mean, you could actually avoid this section through your entire playthrough, but those who dig the replay value, such as I, will come back here and want to try out their new toys, and you could come back here and you could find something really cool that you probably didn't even know was there. And I like that. It encourages exploration, and it really opens up this level, which otherwise may seem pretty simple on the surface. And that's something you'll notice throughout this game. You can use the wisps once you find them, and then they'll end up appearing in previous levels, and you could go back and access some previously inaccessible areas, and that really adds the replay value. But yeah, overall, Tropical Resort is bright, it's colorful, and it is an astounding way to start off the game. Now, we also learned that the bosses are quite pathetic in this game as we face off against the Rotatatron, and this is such an easy boss. You could just grab the laser wisp and pretty much finish this guy off in under a minute, which I did, and I hadn't played this boss in quite some time, and here I am just smashing through him like he's nothing. And this is a common theme throughout the game. Aside from the final boss, these bosses are really nothing to speak of. They're not impressive, and they are just generally very easy, which is a major disappointment, because after having such great stages, you kind of want to cap things off with an awesome boss battle, and you just don't really get that here. But anyway, Tropical Resort is the most basic area in the game pretty much. So we'll move on to Sweet Mountain, and I really like the concept of this level, and you have some just fantastic level design here. We're introduced to the Drill Wisp, thus opening up new passageways, as I mentioned before. But take a look at this. I mean, look at the aesthetics of this attraction. It's made entirely of sweets, desserts, hence the name Sweet Mountain. And you'll notice there are so many different ways of incorporating the food into the level design. You'll be doing a loop-de-loop on a donut. I believe the ground is supposed to be some type of cake or some type of spongy food of some sort. And it's just all around a fun section to go through. There's also a launch base for missiles as well incorporated within it. And it just shows like how Eggman still has his machinery worked into this otherwise lighthearted design, and I like that. It really works, and it adds to the colorful nature of Sonic Colors. Also, let's talk about this boss, Captain Jelly. There's not really much to speak of with this boss. You mostly just pass through some obstacles. It's a pirate ship. You put the ship out of commission, and then you just basically attack the fuck out of Captain Jelly until he finally gives. Kind of an unfulfilling boss. He doesn't really even look that much like a boss. I mean, he's just really a small robot, and he's dressed like a pirate, and, you know, not really much to write home about here. Starlight Carnival. I mean, you want to talk about LSD trips. This, to me, is probably the greatest spectacle I have seen in a Sonic game. A lot of these sections that you'll be going through, you're in the air as battleships are appearing out of nowhere, Eggman's fleet, and it just is just awe-inspiring, breathtaking visuals here. We start off the first act with Sonic running on a pathway of light that is forming in front of him as he runs along it as two badniks try to take him out. You'll also be introduced to the Hover and Cube Wisp as well, and it's just an all-round great section of the park to enjoy and just marvel at its beauty and design. The boss is also my favorite in the game, and you gotta dig that amazing energetic music that accompanies it as you're going against a massive Eggman airship and you're just basically running automated and you have to just dodge from side to side. You have to dodge projectiles as well, and you'll use the homing attack as you break apart the ship bit by bit, and it's just a lot of fun. It's not overly difficult. The projectiles as you dodge them is quite tricky, but it's really fun, and as far as spectacle goes, it's just phenomenal. And this boss battle is made even better in the Ultimate version thanks to Jun Senue and his remix of the awesome boss music that played in the original version. Both versions are great, but as of right now, I gotta say, I'm gonna give the nod to the remix because it just has way more kick to it, and it has a lot of that famous charm that he adds to the compositions. Let me give you a little comparison between the two so you get the idea of what I'm talking about. Planet Wisp. You know, when you start off Act 1 and you're standing in that grassy field, I get a feeling, and you also hear those opening piano chords, you know that you're in for a hell of a level and a hell of a music track. I mean, this is one of Sonic's best music compositions without a doubt. The Planet Wisp's compositions are just amazing. And this is the planet of the Wisps. These are the creatures that you're using their powers. And Eggman has taken over this planet. As you can see, all the metallic structures being built around the planet, and you'll navigate them. There's all these different ramps and all different steel structures that have been set up. And it has a really interesting aesthetic look. You get to gander at all the beautiful foliage and this mesmerizing field that you start off in, and then you have this nice juxtaposition of Eggman building his amusement park empire all around. The disappointing thing about Planet Wisp is the boss, because the Refreshinator is basically a reskin of the Rotatatron from Tropical Resort. The only thing that has changed is he has these floating spheres that are going all around, and you have to use the Spikes Wisp to make your way up to the eye, which is your target, to defeat him. Now, this is really disappointing because we basically just fought this boss a few levels ago, and here we are facing off against a reskin. I mean, come on, the first boss wasn't even that great. I mean, he was great in design, as is this one, but there's no challenge and there's really not a lot to it. And we've only introduced one other element that wasn't in that previous boss fight, so it wasn't really worth bringing it around again for a second round when there's not really a lot here to offer. I also want to talk about the remixes in Planet Wisp, and Tomoya Otani is definitely an electronica fan, to say the least, and so am I, which is why I appreciate the Planet Wisp remixes that are not in the game by default. You actually have to download these tracks, and I'm sorry, but I cannot just buy music for a game. I mean, that's just ridiculous. That should just be in the game to begin with. But these are just spectacular remixes. You get the sound that you heard in Sonic Forces, and some people were just not a fan of that. I think they felt it was just a little bit too electronic, but I really do dig the Sonic Forces soundtrack, and Tomoya's work is just really, really good in my opinion. You have to listen to the track Sunset Heights from Sonic Forces if you're just going by what the general consensus is saying about that game's soundtrack. But yeah, he has brought back that sound to his previous works in Sonic Colors, and I really like the mix, and it's just, yeah, it's fist pumping goodness. Aquarium Park. Now we are talking about my favorite section in the game. If you go back and watch my previous video here on the channel, my top 10 Sonic levels of all time, you will see that this is just such a great level, and I'll talk about it here again. This is just, you want to talk about level design and spectacle. This is the water level of the game, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh man, the Sonic water level. People are having PTSD episodes, remembering Labyrinth Zone from Sonic 1, but let me tell you something. This, accompanied by the amazing music once again, is just the most spectacular level design. It's so much fun to go through. You'll be going underwater, and the great thing about Sonic Colors is that Sonic is no longer just a slug in the water. You can actually use your jumping ability very similar to how Tails would swim in Sonic 3, and you could use it to navigate the water. Now, of course, you can't breathe underwater still, but it's great also to see Sonic go back underwater after so long, because in the Adventure series, Sonic was basically lethally allergic to water, as the minute you even put a toe inside any aquatic setting, you would die instantly. So it's great to see Sonic back in an aquatic setting, and it really works. You'll see that you're basically in a giant dome, and there is just so much to look at, so much to marvel at, so much to appreciate, and you infuse that with a Japanese garden setting to infuse with the overall aquarium setting, and you have this great hybrid that just screams unique, and I just love it. And I said it back in that video, I'm a sucker for Japanese architecture and Japanese gardens. There's just something about that just makes me percolate with delight. Also, I really like using the drill wisp in Aquarium Park. It has a second purpose. Instead of drilling through dirt, and you can actually plow through the water as a makeshift torpedo, and you could go through pipes, and you can break through blocks. And for example, Act 1, you can pretty much skip the whole top side of the level and kind of cut through the underbelly, and you could finish the stage in about 3 minutes, and I think it's a lot of fun. There's two sides to a coin in a lot of these stages, and Aquarium Park Act 1 is one of those examples. Act 4 sees a nod to Sonic Unleashed, as this robot chases after you in the beginning of the stage and then will end up reappearing at the end, and you'll enter into a front-facing camera view chase, and it's pretty much almost exactly like when that robot chased you in Sonic Unleashed, almost point for point. Also, the music piece for this level is just astounding. Now, there were 3 compositions for the original, and we get 3 remixes here, and I have to say I do prefer the originals to the remixes, but this is really, I would say for Act 1 in the original Wii version, that is probably one of my favorite Sonic tracks of all time, without a doubt. It is just a mesmerizing, smooth, euphoric track, and if you haven't listened to it before and you haven't played the game, I would say just listen to the track and you'll just be astounded. Admiral Jelly is the boss of Aquarium Park, and after such a great level, I just think that this is a major disappointment because this is the second time a boss repeats itself. Just like with the Rotatatron and the boss of Planet Wisp. It's the same boss, except it's a little different. Instead of it being a pirate ship, it's now an underwater submarine. And now you have to guide missiles to hit the switch instead of just homing attacking it. So that's different, and but the battle's basically the same thing. You just are now underwater and have to attack Admiral Jelly. I mean, even the name is the same. Instead of Captain, it's an Admiral. I mean, come on, a little bit of originality here. They really didn't put any thought into these bosses. Asteroid Coaster. So this actually brings back the theme park setting in a way, because we haven't really seen traditional amusement park rides since Tropical Resort, and with Asteroid Coaster we get multiple roller coasters, and I really like how it's quite menacing looking. It's made out of bones and skulls, and it brings you through all these twists and turns, and you can hop from coaster to coaster, and sometimes these coasters lead to your doom into the void of space, and others will get you goodies like red rings, or just simply allow you to progress through the stages. So this is pretty challenging. You have this anti-gravity area where you have to avoid these pillars that are coming out of the wall that can one hit kill you. Also, you get this awesome aesthetic of Sonic running around the rings of Saturn, and there's even one particular act where you'll be racing against some badniks around the rings of Saturn, and I think that just looked totally awesome. Also, you'll be homing, attacking, and navigating through asteroid fields. Asteroid Coaster kind of has a Starlight Carnival vibe, that it has all this space theme to it. Even though you are in outer space throughout the entire game, this one definitely shares similarities. It's different, but it's kind of within the same vibe, sort of, kinda. But both attractions still feel original, which is great. You'll also be introduced to my favorite Wisp, the Frenzy one, where it just allows you to turn into a creature that just wreaks havoc on all enemies and objects nearby, and you can smash through all sorts of stuff. But seriously, are we recycling bosses again, just like on Planet Wisp? We're recycling another boss. This time it's the boss from Starlight Carnival. I mean, it's the same airship, it just teleports, and now it has a skeleton design on it. Ooh, so different in the original. I mean, the boss is already lacking in this game, so why are we copying and pasting already with just small little deviations? It's very underwhelming, to say the least. I mean, here we have great level design, but the bosses are just not capping them off effectively like they should, and it's really a letdown, to say the least. Terminal velocity, and you have reached the final section of the game, and this is not really full stages. Basically, the first act is you automatically running as you dodge enemies, and you'll see this crazy robot that was chasing you back in Aquarium Park, and he's more vicious than ever, and this time around you can't just boost past him. You actually have to kind of deal with his shenanigans and his lasers and his punches, and it can be kind of difficult if you're not prepared for this sort of thing. But after you effectively evade him, you will go on to face Eggman in the final boss fight. And it can be pretty challenging. This time around, I beat him faster than I remember my first playthrough. I think I had a more difficult time, and it's been quite some time since I played this game last. Eggman will use the wisps against you, and he'll use their power. It's a little bit different than when you use them, of course, but you get the main idea. He's going to put cubes in your path, he'll shoot lasers at you, and he'll sometimes combine the two wisp powers together to make for some pretty challenging obstacles. But little by little, as you crack away at his ship, you will see that you will gain the wisps back, and it's kind of cool how little by little they're joining together until you finally get all of them, and you will land the final blow as they all combine their powers together to shoot a giant laser at Eggman, and you will finish him off. And what's kind of cool is after this is all said and done, there's still one more act to go. It's just a little short act as Sonic is running to try to get out of terminal velocity, and there's a giant black hole that's chasing after you, and you will soon be engulfed, which is intended, and that effectively ends the game. Sonic has saved the day, and the wisps save him, and they put him gently on the ground and take him back to Earth, and that's basically the game. So overall, Sonic Colors is really a fun adventure. It's a relatively short game, which is kind of disappointing when you compare that to Sonic Unleashed and Sonic 06, which were just monstrous games with tons and tons of content. But you can go back and use the wisp powers to access the previously inaccessible areas in stages when you didn't previously have them, as I mentioned before, and you could go back and get the red rings you missed. And I have done this, even though I knew that I wasn't going to get all the red rings. It's still fun to go back and try to S-rank stages, try to improve your ranks with the added wisp abilities, trying to find shortcuts to finish stages quicker. It's a lot of fun and a lot of replay value because these are such great levels. And it is a testament to show that just because a game is short doesn't mean that it's necessarily a bad game or an underwhelming game. And longer games are not always better than shorter ones. It's about how the game is made, how the game is put together, and how it is ultimately designed and what the final package is. And Sonic Colors is definitely a great package, to say the least, and it's a lot of fun, a lot of great levels, a lot of memorable moments and set pieces, and yeah, I just genuinely really love Sonic Colors. So there you have it, guys. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click the bell to get all the notifications when I post all my new videos. I want to thank all my patrons for your continued support, and thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.